I am humbled and I am pleased to have one of the founding members of the Black Panther Party on the line, Chairman Bobby Seale. Mr. Chairman, how are you this morning?
Good morning. I'm doing just fine. Thank you.
It is my pleasure to be speaking with you. Let me start here. 50 years ago, a new kind of revolution was started in America. It was black pride. It was self-defense. It was improving your community and working in your community and facing off with the racist power structure that exists in this country. 50 years later, do you think the Black Panther Party and the movement that it started is getting its due and getting its respect in history?
Well, to the extent that I'm able to speak and explain the history, to the extent that I'm able to get to colleges. Now, the Koch brothers sent out a syllabus for their economic programs to over 1,200 universities, including some historically black universities, and they want their particular syllabus for special economic programs taught, and they sent it out, and they had grants to go to these departments at these colleges. At the same time, those Koch brothers finance, and I'm talking about this starting back 5 years ago, 3 years ago, finance Tea Party type student organizations on campus. And every time in that period, this last 3 to 4 years, they hear about some black student group on campus trying to get me on that campus. Then they hear about, and they go to the programming board, these Tea Party type student organizations that the Koch brothers finance, et cetera, to stop me from speaking on those campuses. And back 3 years ago, what happened in that campaign that they ran, one Black History Month come up, and I got no speaking engagements all across America. So I had to redesign a whole Facebook program, et cetera, just to get 3 or 4 college lectures in Black History Month today. Now, more importantly, back before all of this happening, I always did 10, 11, or 12 colleges and universities in the in Black History Month, February. You see, so yes, just as the Koch brothers influence our politics today, et cetera, and all the right wing and all the right wing Republicans who block obstruct what Brother Barack Obama and other progressive people are trying to get over, et cetera, they are also blocking people like me 50 years later. And this is that same racist power structure. People don't understand. To know that history, you must know it. It was Richard M. Nixon who was elected. That was the key person. That was the one. When he was elected in 1968, November 1968, by the time he was sworn in, I have the documents related to the film, my film I'm putting out, of showing Richard M. Nixon with his voice on the phone, his old Watergate tape. Watergate tapes have been now made public some time ago, but we found it. There's Richard M. Nixon in the voice of Richard M. Nixon saying, "Now, J. Edgar, I want you to move on these Black Panthers." This man just got sworn in the United States of America. And then J. Edgar Hoover saying, "Well, yes, sir, we've been moving and we'll continue moving." Now, and Richard M. Nixon says, "Now, J. Edgar, now John Mitchell's going to be calling you because we got to get rid of these Black Panthers." Now, this is a Watergate tape right after Nixon is sworn in. And then John Mitchell, a month later, is on the national television news saying, by the end of this 1969 year, we will be rid of the Black Panthers. And that is the year that every other Black Panther Party office across this country, with the FBI planning it and using police forces, they attacked all of our offices all across the country. They orchestrated the murder of Bunchy Carter and John Huggins at UCLA in the early part of that year. And then they attacked, my God, how many? I mean, they just went into office, and they didn't come in there saying you're arrested. They just came in there shooting, real fascist style. And this is the thing, that repression that was going down at that time against us, my organization. You see, by that time when Nixon was elected, I had organized 5,000 Black Panther Party members in 49 chapters and branches across the United States of America. I did that, not Huey Newton. Huey Newton was in jail. Huey Newton sat in jail for 3 years while I organized this organization across the country, because I was the organizer. Huey wasn't a good organizer as I was, but he was a good researcher, and he had good theories back in the day. But my point is, this organization was an organization that stood up, that put programs, and we elected, and I put those programs up, starting with the free breakfast program, then the sickle cell anemia testing program, then the free preventative medical health care clinics, and we began to get, really, and that coming into that 69, all these praises, Gallup polls and everything that came about was saying that 90% of the Black community now supports the Black Panthers with their breakfast programs and their health clinics and stuff like this here. And then J. Edgar Hoover in April or so of 1969 again got up on national television, and he says the Black Panther Party's Breakfast for Children program is a threat to the internal security of America. Feeding kids is a threat to the internal security of America, says J. Edgar Hoover, under the orders of Richard M. Nixon to get rid of these Black Panthers. You see what I'm getting at? So that was the fascism going on. They did not want us to exist. The fact that I was a grassroots organizer and a political electoral community organizer. The fact that I had major voter registration drives beginning when Shirley Chisholm in the early part of 1968 said she was running for president. We supported that, sister, because we was trying to make sure that we get more and more Black politicians. See, people understand the history. In 1965, a year before I created the Black Panther Party, in 1965, I'm working for the city government of Oakland, California, Department of Human Resources. I'm community liaison for the North Oakland Neighborhood Service Center. I ran the North Oakland Youth Jobs Projects program, etc. My point is, that was the period also when Kwame Ture and Stokely Carmichael came out with the book Black Power, and people was hollering Black Power. I said, we ain't going to get no Black Power till we get some more political seats. And then I went to investigate to see how many Black folks was really elected at that time in 1965. You know what I came up with? Of all the political seats one can be elected to throughout the whole of the United States of America, whether it's mayor, whether it's city council, et cetera, and so on, so on, so on, et cetera, and you added up all of those possibilities, there was only 50 people I came up with, and that included Adam Clayton Powell,
Wow.
who was already elected to office. So we had no political power because we didn't man no political seats. Now, Dr. Martin Luther King had done a great job of getting the Civil Rights Bill kicked in, you know what I mean, by 1964, and that was 2 years before I started the Black Panther Party. You see what I'm getting at? So my point is, how do we organize the people? How do we get electoral community unity in the Black community? First, get them registered to vote, where they had a right to vote, you know what I mean? And then be able to take over some political seats, a lot of political seats. Down south, at the time when I was doing that demographic investigation of Black politicians and the lack of Black politicians, I came across at least 20 counties. Well, you know, moving from Georgia all the way over to Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana, stuff, 20 counties that the majority of the people in those counties was Black folks. Now, you have to imagine, a sheriff is a political power seat. If the Black folks that had a right to vote, if they get the right to vote, then they can elect a progressive sheriff. And if the Ku Klux Klan acts up calling themselves lynching somebody, you know what I mean?
Right.
Then that sheriff, that new Black sheriff, if we got that political power seat, could deputize 100 brothers and sisters in there and go after them Ku Klux Klan. Now that's Black power. You see what I'm getting at?
Indeed, I
the
do.
Black power as an imaginary thing was what was going on. I was trying to make it real.
Chairman Seale, so was the whole point of COINTELPRO Was it to stop what would have been a violent revolution among African Americans who were fed up with disparate treatment, or was it to stop the progression of a black messiah that was doing positive things and empowering African Americans? So were they afraid of the guns, and were they afraid of, physical violence from black communities, or were they afraid of positive impact like people like yourself and others would make on black people to improve their self-esteem so that we could run for office, so that we would register to vote and make substantial changes?
Brother, we already had people who could run for office. People had been trying to run for office in many places across the United States of America. When you take political power seats, that means you can change the racist laws. When Rosa Parks in the 1950s, when she in the middle of the 1950s refused to move to the back of the bus, what did that represent? It represented a law that was on the books in the state where the racists had put that law. So that's a political power seat. You see what I mean? Political power seat means we can do that. If you control the county seat, that monies and tax monies that county supervisors allocate will operate. So they wanted to stop that kind of political movement, and that is what I was organizing. More so than most of the other grassroots organizations, but yet the other grassroots organization was just as important, etc. But I went for the real ground level, grassroots brothers and sisters in the communities across the country. That's what I went for, and put my organization together. So when Nixon said, right after he was elected, J. Edgar Hoover, I need you to get rid of these Black Panthers, they were trying to stop that kind of political electoral community unity in the black community across the United States of America. That's what they were stopping for.
How far have we come right now in 2016? We're about to witness the end of the second term of a black president, which is something that most of us could have never imagined, but we still suffer from a lack of political participation as black people. Our voter registration in major cities is still too low. Our participation in things like midterm elections, congressional elections is still too low, something that I know that you witnessed when you ran for city council in 1973. What do we do moving forward to show black people that becoming a voter and registering to vote is a way in which you can dethrone the racist political power structure in America?
Brother, there is a lot of black folks registered to vote. Look at what's happening across the country with mayors and stuff trying to stop and curtail black voting, people who are already registered to vote. Let's back up here a little bit. All right, 1969, that last shootout happened. When that last shootout happened down in Los Angeles, California, and I had already gotten my party members over that year to network to make sure we had friends. I had coalitions with the NACP, I had coalitions with SCLC, I had coalitions with 40 different organizational groups and many more beyond that, other liberal groups, etc., to support us. And they was the ones who came out against the power structure for attacking our offices all that year of 1969. They stopped the attack of the national headquarters. I mean, they stopped the attack of Seattle, Washington, etc. And then there was a Senate investigation hearing against the FBI using the police forces and their actions to attack us, etc. So that stopped all the shootouts. So we still existed. The Black Panther Party still existed after that. All those charges and stuff, all those courtroom cases, we won 95% of all our courtroom cases in court. I won my case. Even Huey got out of jail and indirectly won his case and situation, et cetera, and so on. I'm trying to tell you, we struggle from the streets to the courtroom, et cetera, and that power structure. And I'm not criticizing black folks because they're unregistered to vote. I'm criticizing the power structure because they're suppressing the vote. You can see what's going on for the last few years of elections. You know what I mean? In Ohio, wherever, et cetera. There's brothers and sisters out there, got these brothers and sisters to vote in the last election, boom, with the president, et cetera. Now, if we have to continue to get more people registered to vote. And I'm not going to sit up here and criticize my brothers and sisters and call them and just because they're not registered. I'm saying that we want more and more brothers and sisters like this already going on, trying to get us registered to vote and use that vote to get more progressive politicians, whether they're black or not. You see, we can't clown on no Clarence Thomas politician who's in the Supreme Court. That guy there is nothing but a bought out. He's bought out by that avaricious corporate money rich who's about controlling everything. What we have to do is get our grassroots politicians, more progressive politicians. We got 89 progressive politicians voting in the House of the Representatives of the United States of America. We need 3 times that many. When we have to evolve those politicians. Look, by the end of the 1970s, 15 years after I created the Black Panther Party, there were 7,000 black folks duly elected to vote. By the end of the 1980s, there's over 12,000 black folks duly elected to vote. And later on, 16,000. Then good, the Chicano Mexican-American brothers and sisters rolled in the 90s. And they begin to get their political power going. You see what I'm getting at? So that's important. Everything. So we can control, piece by piece, step by step, control, get rid of the racist laws, get rid of, right on up to the Black Lives Movement framework. This is what this thing is all about. We have to stop this demilitarizing of police departments. We have to stop this right-wing racist mentality of murder and killing that's in too many police departments. Yeah, there are some police departments just doing a regular job. I know that, but it's too many. I mean, black folks are being killed 20 times the rate of white counterparts in the white community. 20 times the rate. That's why we call it the Black Lives Matter. You know, there's no other ethnic group and especially no young white group counterparts in their communities being killed at the rate of young black people, and too many of those killings got unarmed blacks, etc., because of the whole racist mentality backing it up. You see what I'm getting at?
Indeed, I do. Let me ask you one more question, Chairman Seale. Can you talk about the diversity of the movement? When people hear Black Panthers and the Black Panther Party, they may think just African Americans at the time. But if you look at the New Haven trials, there were white students on college campuses that were involved in Oakland and Los Angeles. There was a great diversity of people.
Well, let me explain something to you. I'm the one that caused that diversity. The Black Panther Party started having coalitions with organizations all across the country when I only had 400 members of them down the West Coast. Then they killed Dr. Martin Luther King. I continued that coalition politics. All the white left radicals, I had coalitions with them. All the white liberals who was really doing something, when we saw it, I coalesced with them. All the black organizations, I mean, I told you I had coalitions with SCLC and Martin Luther King, SCLC. I mean, people don't understand. When we said all power to all the people, we were looking at that whole range, you see what I mean, of where we were coming from. We even had the young patriots out of the Appalachian Mountains and the coal minings that had moved into Chicago. And Fred Hampton organized them, organized the young Puerto Rican brothers and the young lords, organized again, and that's what he did. And that's why they killed him. Why? Because we had those coalitions with all those people. We crossed all those racial lines. We crossed that in terms of that movement and that protest. And then some of them white kids, they were getting shot and killed and murdered too. And they say, whoa, police brutality 101. Right, this is what we've been talking about. You know what I mean? So I'm just saying, that's what that protest was about. And they were about repressing, killing, and murdering, sending in infiltrators in our organization to kill people. In that film, Stanley Nelson's film, etc., Wesley Swearinger, the former FBI agent, and because he wrote a book called FBI Secrets, and he says, right in Stanley, what's your name saying? He says the FBI sent in infiltrators to disrupt, to distort, mess up, and kill people, and that's exactly what they did when they came in. They murdered Fred Hampton, and we proved in the courts later on the families got millions of dollars suit that the FBI and state's attorney in Chicago had to pay because of the murder of Fred Hampton and Mark Clark, and etc. And now Bobby Rush is a United States congressman and have been one so for the last 20-odd years. Barbara Lee, Congresswoman Barbara Lee, who worked with the Black Panther Party, they just got through honoring me just Saturday night here in Oakland, California. I'm just saying, based on that history is the foundation That 60s protest movement history, including what Brother Martin Luther King was doing, what NAACP was doing, what et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And people run around want to talk. Some of these guys, oh man, I don't know NAACP. What you talking about, man? When I was in jail, I took the jail's commissioner in Connecticut to court, in federal court, because he was violating the 8th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States of America. And who backed me up? The NAACP. Roy Wilkins was the head of the NAACP. I talked to Roy Wilkins on the phone several times. So we had those coalitions, and those coalitions is what the power structure was truly afraid of, and what Nixon and their right-wing fascists, but what they were afraid of.
Chairman Seale, if people want more information about you or want to obtain any of your books, how can they do that?
You can go to my website. You go to my website, Bobby Seale, my name is my website, BobbySeale.com. And then when you get to my website, you search it out, and you get to the book order place. You can order books. You can see the link to my Facebook. I just need young brothers and sisters on these college campuses. These races have stopped and tried to stop me from speaking on campuses, and we have to get some young brothers and sisters on these campuses to invite me to speak. I mean, you know, when I get $5,000-$6,000 to speak, you know what I mean, et cetera, that's my livelihood. You know, when I left the party, I couldn't get a job nowhere. You know what I mean? People wasn't going to give me a job. I mean, I had a little short radio job for 2 years in Denver, Colorado there, where I was located for a while there, you know, the Bobby Seale show, whatever, et cetera. It played a little money, and et cetera. You know, I published a book, and you only get so much money. I used up the advance on the book just for the period of writing the book. Me and my wife writing my second book at the time, et cetera, and so on. You see, so I'm not a rich person or nothing like this here, but I stick to my guns. I stick to my stand. I stick to my principles that we're going to evolve and continue to work and struggle, but stand up for constitutional, democratic, civil human rights for all people, and especially black people, and we're the ones who are out there in the forefront and have been in the forefront. Since the beginning of this country, black folks have been in the forefront of trying to get our rights, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, even the Civil War in this country historically, you know what I mean? After 2 years, Abraham Lincoln said, oh, my God, we're losing the war, boom, 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 boom. And he devised a plan. And the heavy resistance of the Southern racist Confederate down there in 5 states, that's when he made the Emancipation Proclamation. That was an executive order, not an amendment, an executive order that ended forever for free for all these black folks. But the very next line in that Emancipation Proclamation said all able-bodied black men would be taken into the Northern Union Army. And 168,000 black slaves who were pulled in immediately and trained, I'm talking about in a matter of 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 months, et cetera, and began to fight the Confederates. So in effect, the Confederates, and that boy that waved that Confederate flag down there in South Carolina where he shot and killed 9 brothers and sisters in the church, et cetera, boom, 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 the Confederate and their butts got kicked by us black brothers and sisters. And that 13th Amendment came in at the surrender of that thing, and that ended slavery. And then we had the 13th and the 14th and the 15th Amendment, et cetera. We were citizens of the United States of America. 38,000 black men died in that Civil War trying to end that slavery, et cetera, and boom, 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 and get something going. And then for 10 years during the Reconstruction period was the first time blacks were elected to political office, man. We had a whole lot of black people elected to political office in that 10 years. And then Jim Crow moved back in, and the North let Jim Crow take over, and then the Ku Klux Klan, what have you, et cetera, for the next 2 or 3 decades. But I'm just trying to tell you, we have some gallant, profound history that we have to look at and see and understand. Boom, that in our everyday lives, and yes, we have to have jobs and we have to have decent income, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, but we got to know and consider we must go out there, we must vote. You know what I mean? And look, they're rejuvenating on a whole broad level with all this right-wing Republicans trying to take those political power seats. I mean, why would they spend so much money if those political power seats weren't valuable? You see? See, in those political policies, you can get in there and you can change laws and you can make new laws, you know what I mean, that support economic rights, et cetera, and so on.
Chairman Bobby Seale, it has been an absolute honor and a pleasure. And let me tell you what, I would love to bring you to Milwaukee because I want you to share this knowledge that you have of the system with folks here in Milwaukee, including our college students. So I thank you so very much. I will be in touch with you
Have
again.
them do that. Let me say something. This is the 50th anniversary. This year, October, we'll be celebrating the 50th anniversary of the founding of my organization, the Black Panther Party. Now, we'll be in here in Oakland. And people who buy books, et cetera, off of my website, et cetera, you are helping me put on this 50th anniversary. You know what I mean? Because I got a lot of people organized, but we're putting it together. Now, even if people can get me invited to speak at their campuses in September, October, November, that 50th anniversary founding is there. You know, because we'll have some other points following that of 50. The 50th anniversary of me in 1967 is going to come after that, where I led an armed delegation into the California State Legislature May 2nd, 1967. So next year, 2017, will be the 50th anniversary of that. That is when the Black Panther Party got international notoriety, when I led that armed delegation. I led it there to read a statement in opposition to the state legislature dominated by a bunch of right-wing white racists, et cetera, you know what I mean, trying to stop us from exercising our constitutional right to observe police in our community. You know what I mean? So the struggle goes on, even though we have this is not a closure. This is to educate younger brothers and sisters, educate the Black Lives Movement group. You see what I mean? And I don't want to run their organizations. They have to run their organizations. You see what I mean? I just want to show them about the value of committee leadership, not mono leadership. Committee. I always had committees in each chapters and branches. You know what I mean? A deputy minister of defense, deputy minister of education, deputy minister of this, deputy minister of that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, mimicking the committee on the national level. You see what I'm getting at? So these are the kinds of things that young people got to, so you don't fall into the trap of some one leader trying to take over everything. You see what I mean? And all that kind of crap. If you have the informed committee, let me put the word informed committee, doing research and knowing. And one of the things about me, I knew my African and African American history. I knew the politics of the day. I did the research, et cetera, back in my day, as I was explaining. I did the demographic investigation of the lack of black politicians being elected in those times. I was working for the city government, but at the same time I was working for the city government, there were positive programs like the War on Poverty program, and how that money was to be spent in terms of not only giving the kids just some old jobs. I mean, I moved and got them to shift money to teach them trades and things and stuff like this here, because I was a lucky man. I was raised a carpenter and a builder. My father built our first home when I was 7 years old. Wow. You know what I mean? My father was a master carpenter builder, so I was lucky to be raised a carpenter and a builder. By the time I'm 15 years old, I'm an architect. I'm doing lot plot layouts and architectural structural drawing for adding rooms and dens to people's houses for my father and some other contractor adding rooms and dens to people's homes. I mean, these here plans would be taken to license and inspection downtown Oakland, wherever, California, et cetera. Boom, 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 boom. And they passed specs and specifications and everything. I was an architect at age 15. Then I went to the United States Air Force, structural repair, high-performance aircraft. I excelled in my tech school. I became honor student of my tech school. You know what I mean? Structural repair on high-performance aircraft, what have you, et cetera. Then I passed a 5-level skill test. Then they cross-trained me again on the 7-level skill test. And I went into a whole knowledge of metallurgical knowledge. You know, we had to fabricate with titanium at that time. Titanium. This was a new metal firm with higher heat resistance than basic sheet steel, what have you, et cetera. See, so all these factors, and being in the military service, understanding infrastructure, being a big-time lead man, and for 14, 15 guys cleaning up. We have 1 month to clean up a B-52 bomber for all the gigs, et cetera, and its inspections, et cetera. And then That is what happened. Then I wound up after the military service. I wound up working on the Gemini missile program. I worked in the engineering department, non-destruct testing for all engine frames, non-destruct testing for all three stages of exhaust housing for the Gemini missile program when they were popping the satellites up around the Earth then. And then I got involved. I went to hear Dr. Martin Luther King speak. Dr. Martin Luther King spoke. And he says, here in the San Francisco, Oakland Bay Area, he says, Langendorf Bread Company and Kilpatrick's Bread Company refused to hire any people of color. And Martin Luther King went on to say, and all across America, he says, Wonder Bread Company refused to hire any people of color. And Martin Luther King said, I say we're going to have to boycott them. And we want to boycott them so consistently and so profoundly. We want to make Wonder Bread wonder where the money went. Ooh. Man, that's 7,000 people in that auditorium and me. I was totally inspired by Brother Dr. Martin Luther King about what we had to do to begin to end this institutionalized racism. And that was in 1962, 63, before I created the Black Panther Party.
And Chairman Seale, we are inspired by you. This has been an absolute pleasure. We will stay in touch. God bless you and power to the people.
Power to the people, brother. Thank you.